Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Frackin' Sports. I'm your host, Cody, and today we're looking at the Big Ten. Um, Praise God because college football is back. Week 0 happened. So happy it's back. Hallelujah. Um, so this is a big year for the Big Ten. Especially when it comes to how we talk about compared SEC and the Big Ten. Um, because while we while the Big Ten has been like we have had won the national championship the past 2 times, the conference is very top heavy. Besides maybe 3, 4 teams that could compete for the Big Ten title, it's really not that deep. There's no tier 2 teams that you wouldn't be shocked if they won, but there's no tier 2, and it's like tier 1, and then like little tiny tier 2, and then tier 3, like big tier 3 and tier 4. So are more teams going to put themselves in tier 2 this season? That's to be seen. And that's honestly what the Big Ten needs this year. Because going through this offseason, you had to search to hear about most of these teams. Big Ten teams. You heard the big 5 of them, but you didn't hear anything about the other ones. Because they're just not big brands, and they don't have a good football program, so they don't get talked about. So let's start it off at number 18, Northwestern. Now, they honestly, what I've heard from the news lately, and this was even a few years ago, was more about stadium renovations and where they were going to play during those stadium renovations than the actual team. That is how irrelevant this team is in the Big Ten. Yeah, and they host Western Illinois, Louisiana Monroe, and then they face Tulane. And then their Big Ten they play Oregon at home, UCLA at home, Purdue, Michigan, and Minnesota at home. And then they go to Penn State, Nebraska, USC, and Illinois. I think they're losing all of those Big Ten games and probably losing one of their non-conference games. This team has no stake in this. And FanDuel would agree. They say they're at plus 30,000 odds to win the conference and a win total of 3.5. That's not great. Another team that I haven't heard anything about is Rutgers. I could go through these and you'd be like, I don't know anything about these. They host Ohio, Miami for non-conference, Miami, Ohio, and Norfolk State. And then Big Ten they play Iowa, Oregon, Maryland, Penn State, and go to Minnesota, Washington, Purdue, Illinois, and Ohio State. And outside of the non-conference games, those are probably all losses too. Same odds, and over/under win total at 5.5, which I find surprising. And honestly, if they got 5 or 6, I would be very surprised. So, most likely not going to happen. And so number 16 got the Maryland Terrapins. Now, this team has been inconsistent. A few years ago, when they had Tua's brother, they ranked. It kind of slipped since then. In non-conference play, they host Florida Atlantic, Northern Illinois, and Towson. And then they face Washington, Nebraska, Indiana, and Michigan at home. And travel to Wisconsin, UCLA, Rutgers, Illinois, and Michigan State. I think some of these, they get a little bit of, a chance, but it's not looking great for Maryland here. Their odds are the same as Rutgers and Northwestern at 30,000, and their over/under win total is at 4.5. Go Terps just is not going to be said, Maryland. Let's be real. Number 15 is Purdue. Now, I typically do hear more about Purdue, but this past off season, they have been ransacked, like absolutely, just like vultures came to Purdue and just ripped that corpse to that dead animal to the bone, stripped clean, so many transfers have left Purdue. And they were good players. And it's how did Purdue not do good year? I don't know. This year just does not look great. In non-conference play, they host Ball State and Southern Illinois before traveling to South Bend to play Notre Dame. And in conference play, the Boilers play USC, Illinois, Rutgers, Ohio State, and Indiana, traveling to Minnesota, Northwestern, Michigan, and Washington. I feel like they can win some of their conference games, and I just have more faith in Purdue because they have been rather more consistent than the last three teams on this list. Number 14, UCLA. I think I rank them a little higher because they did get Nico Iamaleava. I always have trouble saying his name, but and I think just because he is there, that might give them a win. In non-conference play, they host Utah and New Mexico and travel to UNLV. And in Big Ten action, they host Penn State, Maryland, Nebraska, and Washington, and face Northwestern, Michigan State, Indiana, Ohio State, and USC on the road. The good thing for UCLA here is two of their not two toughest, but two of their home games they have to travel far, across the country. So that probably makes those games a little closer. But FanDuel lists them at 20,000 and over/under win total at 5.5 wins. I could see them get into a bowl game. I don't know. Doesn't seem likely. Number 13 is Wisconsin. Now, I think Wisconsin has been tracking upwards, but this is a dangerous year for Luke Fickell because he's on the hot seat already. And then he gets absolutely slapped in the face with one of probably the toughest schedule in the Big Ten. In non-conference play, they host Miami of Ohio, Middle Tennessee, and make a daunting trip to Tuscaloosa to play Alabama. And then Big Ten action, Wisconsin hosts Maryland, Iowa, Ohio State, Washington, and Illinois in Madison while traveling to Michigan, Oregon, and Indiana, and Minnesota. They get three of the top, they get 3 of the top 5 teams I have on my list. That is rough. Yeah. And a top SEC opponent, I think that's a tall order. And I feel bad for Luke Fickell because it could go really badly. But if they make a bowl game, he probably is safe. Odds to win the conference are at plus 12,500 and over under win total at 5.5. Yeah. Number 12, I got Michigan State. I think this team is. I don't understand why they haven't been more consistent and a tier 2 team. I think they should be. They're a big brand. Not as big as Michigan, but they should be. And they've always kind of been on that cusp, but never actually been there. And they've kind of been poverty sometimes. So I think this is one of these years where they need to make that step. They host Western Michigan, Boston College, and Youngstown State at home. And then in East Lansing, the Spartans will also welcome UCLA, Michigan, Penn State, and Maryland, while going to USC, Nebraska, Indiana, Minnesota, and Iowa. I think that is a very workable schedule, and they should be able to have maybe win 8 games and get some respect back. And their odds to win the conference are at plus 10,000, and their over under win total is 5.5. I think that this is a season that they should reestablish themselves as a tier 2 team. Really, this should be a tier 2 program in the Big Ten. We should be in tier 2 category right now. Because that would be if we were listing SEC teams. This is where we would be right now. Yeah. So, and who can compete for the title this year, and you wouldn't be surprised. Number 11, I have Minnesota. This team is always so weird because they can beat teams that they are not supposed to beat, but then they just lose stupid games. And it's inconsistent, and you just never know how to feel with them, and it feels like they're stuck in the mud. They're not going to go anywhere. And I think Coach PJ Fleck, he needs to really get this team going in the right direction. They play Buffalo Northwestern at home and Cal on the road, and then they host Rutgers, Purdue, Nebraska, Michigan State, and Wisconsin, and go on the road against Ohio State, Iowa, Oregon, and Northwestern. Listen, all those home games are winnable. They're probably going to lose the ones against Ohio State and Oregon. Otherwise, I think this team could win 10 games. They should. Their odds to win the conference are at plus 12,500, and their over and under win total is at 6.5. Like I said, I think their schedule is favorable enough that they can win 10 games. Do I think that's going to happen? No, because they're probably going to lose to Northwestern. That would seem very Minnesota to me. Yeah. Number 10, I got Washington. After Kalen DeBoer, I really kind of thought this program would fall off. But Jed Fish kind of surprised me, and this team didn't do terrible, and they have a very talented and unspoken about a lot in the national space quarterback in Demond Williams Jr. So this team could be sneaky good. In non-conference play, they host Colorado State and UC Davis in a rivalry game against of the Apple Cup in Week 3 against Washington State. And then they host Ohio State, Rutgers, Illinois, Purdue, Oregon, and travel to play Maryland, Michigan, Wisconsin, and UCLA. I think they could win a lot of these games. Not Ohio State, not Oregon, but they could win a lot. Yeah. FanDuel lists Washington at 5,500 to win the conference and over/under win total at 7.5. If Damon Williams Jr. plays great, this team could make it into Tier 2 category. Obviously, they've only been in the conference for 1 year, so this would be a good year for them to establish themselves in that part of the conference. Number 9 is Indiana. So, after Kurt Cignetti did wonders last year, and got this team, like, they just came out of nowhere. And they got into the playoffs. Now, obviously, they had a cakewalk schedule. They played absolutely no one, which is a very Big Ten kind of thing. So, I don't hold them as high this year, but I do like Kurt Cignetti as a coach, but they're going to be on everyone's radar now. Not in like that they're going to absolutely dog walk people, but they're not going to be able to sneak up on anyone now. And they host Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, Indiana State at home. Again, this was kind of Kurt Cignetti's kind of thing. He's like, let's just try and schedule easy and make the playoffs. And then they also welcome Illinois, Michigan State, UCLA, and Wisconsin, while going to Iowa, Oregon, Maryland, and Penn State. They have equal talent or more talent teams on their schedule, and so I think that would maybe make it a little harder to win a lot of games. Their odds to win the conference are at 4,000, and their over/under win total is at 8.5. Number 8, I got Iowa. Iowa's always been a consistent program. I would say they're Tier 2, but they've kind of went backwards. Especially with like their offensive struggles, which has always kind of been a big thing for them. In non-conference play, they'll play Albany and UMass, and then head to Ames to play Iowa State in the annual Cy-Hawk rivalry game. And then in Big Ten play, they will play Indiana, Penn State, Minnesota, Oregon, and Michigan State at home, while traveling to Rutgers, Wisconsin, USC, and Nebraska. I think they're very winnable games on this. I think they could probably win 9 games. FanDuel lists their odds at 3,300 to win the conference and 7.5 over/under win total. Yeah. Number 7, I got USC. Boy, have I wanted to talk about USC, but give me a second. That water just hit me. USC Like, if Lincoln Riley does not get it done this year, if he does not make improvements to this program, and it has gone downhill every single year since he's been there, he's getting fired. There's no way. Like, it is on everyone's radar. I really think that teams are going to go out of their way to embarrass USC. But they got a good defensive coordinator in Danton Lynn, so if the defensive issues persist, Lincoln's out. Especially with how he's a quarterback guy and the offense should be good. So why, if that struggles too, like, he could just be out of a job. In non-conference play, they host Missouri State and Georgia Southern, and then go to South Bend to play Notre Dame. And then in Big Ten play, they host Michigan State, Michigan, Northwestern, Iowa, and UCLA, and travel to Purdue, Illinois, Nebraska, and Oregon. I see 2 losses, 1 loss. They should win 10, 11 games. No. 9, 10. If they don't, I don't know. I think that schedule is very favorable for them. And this is too big of a brand that, like, if they're not good this year, I don't think Lincoln Riley's tenure is going to be there much longer. So this is make break year for both the coach and the program, because they could also just settle into the back of the newer Big Ten teams and be less relevant. Number 6, I got Nebraska. Now this team has not been relevant in terms of the last few years and being a relevant Big Ten team. And the expectations are rising, but it's year 3 under Matt Rule, and year 3 under Matt Rule is an interesting thing, because at Temple, when he was at Baylor, they significantly got better in year 3. So, applying that logic to this, Nebraska could surprise some people this year. Well, I don't know. People are expecting this. And in non-conference play, they are an opener in Arrowhead against Cincinnati, which is kind of weird because Dylan Raiola, the quarterback, he looks like Patrick Mahomes and acts like he's him. It's kind of weird, but whatever. It's neither here nor there. And then they play host Akron and Houston Christian. And then in Big Ten action, Nebraska will host Michigan, Michigan State, Northwestern, USC, and Iowa, and hitting the road to face Maryland, Minnesota, UCLA, and Penn State. I see 2 tough games on this. I think Matt Rule could make the playoffs because it's year 3 under Matt Rule. That taxes Matt Rule year 3. Pretty guaranteed things. Their odds to win the conference are 3,000, and under win total at 7.5. I would take the over if I was a betting man, but I'm not, so I'm not going to. And if they do make a push to being a playoff contender, they'll be back into that premier brand of college football like they were in the 90s. That's just where they'll be at. Number 5, I got Michigan. This was a tough year for them last year. And it's kind of gotten weird, especially with the sanctions with the NCAA over their national championship run. I'm not going to speak on that, but it's been a weird, noisy off season, but they have a good defense still. They should have a good O-line. They'll always be able to run the ball. So these things should help their freshman quarterback, Bryce Underwood, to develop. And the roster will be capable of helping him develop and kind of learn on the fly in non-conference play. The Wolverines host New Mexico and Central Michigan and travel to Norman to play the Oklahoma Sooners. And then Ann Arbor for Big Ten play. The Maize and Blue welcome Wisconsin, Washington, Purdue, and Ohio State. And their road slate includes Nebraska, USC, Michigan State, Northwestern, and Maryland. I see some winnable games for this, and they could continue to just absolutely embarrass Ohio State. So making the playoffs isn't that crazy to me. I would not be surprised, but this is a tier 2 program for right now under Sean Moore. Even though if you think last year wasn't that good, their odds to win the conference are at 950, and their over on the win total is at 9.5. Yeah, I think Underwood, if he is truly the prospect that they think he is, this team will be going places this year in the playoffs and in the Big Ten. Number 4, I got Illinois. This team has one of the biggest returning productions in returning 76% of their starters from last year to this year. Their quarterback, Luke Altmaier, returned for another season. And that's the most important position. And in non-conference play, they play Western Michigan, Western Illinois, and travel to Duke. And they also play at home against USC, Ohio State, Rutgers, Maryland, and Northwestern, and Champaign. And then road trips to Indiana, Purdue, Washington, and Wisconsin. On paper, this schedule is manageable. It's favorable, and I think most of these, besides Ohio State, they're probably going to be favored in every single one of these games. And so, watch Illinois make some noise this season, but who knows? FanDuel lists them at 3,500 to win the conference and over/under win total at 8.5. With a roster built on experience, a quarterback with experience in the system, I think this is they could find themselves in the Big Ten title game, and they could make themselves defend the playoffs. It just depends on if they caught lightning in a bottle and they can shock the league. Number 3, I got the Oregon Ducks. So, I trust Dan Lanning. So this team's always going to be up there. They're already a tier 1 program. This is tier 1 program here. And Dylan Gabriel, obviously he went off to the NFL, but Dante Moore was also there that year, and he sat through the whole year. So that is good because now he has time. He had the development time in this system where he could learn it, in which last year when we saw Dylan Gabriel, it was kind of slow offense at the start because he hadn't learned the system all the way. And so that's really good for Dante Moore. And I just trust Dan Lanning to be a good coach. And so in non-conference play, Oregon hosts Montana State, Oklahoma State, and longtime rival Oregon State, playing all the state schools. And then home matchups with Indiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and USC, while traveling to Northwestern, Penn State, Rutgers, Iowa, and Washington. They don't have Ohio State, which is a major break for them. They don't even have Michigan, which is a major break for them. This team could obviously win the conference. I would not be surprised if they did. I also wouldn't be surprised if they made the college football playoffs. Their odds to win the conference are at plus 430, and their over-under win total is at 10.5. I would almost pick them to do it, but I don't know. And number 2 is the Ohio State Buckeyes. So fresh off winning the national championship, they lost a lot. Had to bring in new coordinators, and so sky high expectations for this year. But most of it is on Ryan Day because they have to beat the team up north in Michigan. Like, he has lost 4 straight. That obviously winning titles matters. But for Ohio State, it's obviously beating Michigan the most. And they're having quarterback Julian Sang starting, and he has more than enough talent around him, obviously with arguably the 2 best players in the country on offense and defense, and Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs. So they host Texas, Grambling State, and Ohio, and then the Big Ten slate includes Minnesota, Penn State, UCLA, and Rutgers, and with road trips to Washington, Illinois, Wisconsin, Purdue, and of course Michigan. Obviously, I would say that they maybe have 1 loss on their schedule, but this team could go undefeated. But they could also lose to Michigan, and that would be wildly uncomfortable for Ryan Day. And fair not, he would be on the hot seat. But their odds to win the conference are plus 195 and over in the win total at 10.5. I think they're obviously a lock for the playoffs. This team is just too good. Number 1, I have the Penn State Nittany Lions. After a strong 2024 season, winning 2 playoff games, you would think that James Franklin would no longer have doubters being like, so he won the big one, right? Like, if you think they won 2 playoff games, he'd be like, James Franklin, he should not have any doubters anymore. He's done what has been asked, right? He won big games. But they were against teams that were less talented than him at Boise State and SMU. So you think about it, and so like the thing about Penn State is they're never going to lose to a team that's lesser than them. But if it's equal or more talent than them, they cannot win that game. And that has been the knock on James Franklin. This is obviously the year for James Franklin to disprove that with Drew Raller another year in Happy Valley, given Franklin the most proven commodity under center in the Big Ten, with 63% in returning production. It obviously looks like the most complete team in the Big Ten. Got some receivers. So, does this translate into national championship run? Their schedule's pretty favorable. They have Nevada, Florida International, and Villanova, and then they host Oregon in the whiteout game, Northwestern, Indiana, Nebraska, and go to UCLA, Iowa, Ohio State, Michigan State, and Rutgers. So, can they win against Oregon? Can they win against Ohio State? If they can't, and obviously they have to, if they won the conference in a rematch, I guess then that proves them wrong, proves the doubters wrong, but obviously this is probably James Franklin's best chance because of how much returning production he has. Their odds to win the conference are at plus 210, and their over-under win total is at 10.5. I would almost say they're a lock. I could not see the Penn State and Nittany Lions not in the playoffs. It would shock me if they weren't. So that's just what I think about Penn State, and that's what I think about the Big Ten. Obviously, we need some more Tier 2 teams in the Big Ten because it's Tier 1 and then everyone else. I think this conference needs to get deeper for them really to establish them as that, especially now that they don't have the 9-conference argument anymore because the SEC is moving to a 9-conference game schedule. Obviously, that I should be talking about that in the SEC preview, but that news came out after I posted that SEC preview. If you have not watched that, you should go check it out. Anyways, thank y'all for watching. Let me know your thoughts and if you rank them any different. God bless. Have a great football season. And let's go. I'm pumped. See you guys